We have some coupon codes coming up later in the show. Make sure you stay tuned to take advantage of these great deals. You are now listening to Shotgun Sports USA. I'm your host, Justin Barker, and I talk to shotgun shooters from all disciplines, championship-winning coaches, gun clubs, world-class target setters, vendors, and industry-leading companies that fuel the sport. If you're into clay target sports, you are at the right place for insider information from some of the best in the world every single week. Check us out online at shotgunsportsusa.com and like us on Facebook and Instagram. Shotgun Sports USA is powered by Winchester Ammunition, the American legend. Also brought to you by Ultimate Shooting Accessories, Rick Hemingway's Promatic Trap Cells, Sound Gear Phantom, Comp and Choke, Clay Shooter Supply, and Pila Performance Eyewear. Have you seen the blade frame that Pila made exclusively for Clay Target Vision? They had Pila design this because they've always felt that the Outlaws needed a frame that's simple, light, and just works. Clay Target Vision has been selling Pila glasses for 20 years, and they understand the product and can get you into Pilas that work for you. Check out this special. Get a blade frame set with one lens for $389 and free shipping. And you can choose any lens, even the newest lenses for 2022. Place your order at claytargetvision.com. My guests today on the show have been friends for a long time, and I caught up with them and we talked a little about everything. What they thought about the Jack Links Cup, the future of sporting clays, how inflation's affected the sport, and a lot more. Please welcome to the show Anthony Matarese Jr. and John Commerford. Got Anthony Matarese and John Commerford here with me. We're at Jack Links, the first Jack Links Cup in Okeechobee, Florida, Quail Creek Sporting Ranch. And this is a time that I get to with shooters. I mean, it's, everybody's here. I can sit down with them and carry on a conversation. And we have some good topics we're going to talk about today. How you doing?
Doing pretty well. How about you, Justin?
Good. What about you, John?
I've had better days, but I'm enjoying myself.
I saw John come up yesterday to registration, and the first thing that caught his eye was the cooler with all the liquor in it. He was asking, what are you doing with that?
That's exactly right. I thought it was table gifts for Lois, but I heard it was a fundraiser, so I immediately bought a ticket.
Did you?
Yeah. You got to support the young guns here at Quail Creek.
That's right. So we've shot the first day of the main, shot the prelims. I've had a good time. Everything's set up right. I mean, what do you think about the shoot so far?
Yes, so far it's awesome. I'm grateful that someone picked up where the last owner left off, and we got a great venue to come to. I feel that it takes someone special to buy a place like this. It's definitely not a for-profit facility by what I can look at. So I think every time that shooters drive in the gate, they should be grateful that the owners are inviting us here to come shoot.
Yep. Everything from the gift that you got when the registration package I gave you was super nice with the coolers, and a place like this that costs as much as it does, it's got to take a lot of money to run, especially with a big shoot like this. Yeah, I mean,
operationally, this place is a big undertaking. They have a lot of infrastructure. There's a lot going on, and they hire a lot of people to come here and make sure that this event takes place and runs successfully. Yeah. And I'm grateful for that, and I think everybody should be.
Yeah, I pulled up to shooting the main this morning at 8:30. And I see Anthony rides by and he hands me a book and said, check this out. And it's his book. And it's not been published yet, but it's in what stage is this called?
It's to be published. So it's there. It'll be printed. Everything's finalized with the actual editing and the process of publishing it. It just has to be printed. Yeah. So it's left basically the publishing house to go to the printer. And we will be printing it. The estimates are, I'm kind of waiting. I'm on their time. A lot of delays still with things and paper, et cetera. So April time frame, it should be actually running through. And, we've got about 10 or 15 what we call review edition books that I've given out to some people to look at. And some folks are going to write some articles on them, et cetera, just in anticipation of the book being available for sale.
So I grabbed this book. We get to the first station I shoot, and I was the first one leading off the station. So I go sit back in the cart and I open this book, and it covers everything from start to finish. I mean, I think that you could even go in there while you're shooting and go, well, let me look up crosses here for just a second. I'm going to see what I did wrong on that station. I mean, John's read it.
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head on something. How I see it being used is, look, Anthony's a much better shot than you and I are by far.
Right.
But someone like me, where you go at a shoot like this, where there's a more difficult course, there's a what some would score higher on a different course, but you get a certain tower bird, or you get an incomer, or whatever target is that gave you trouble, you could pull that thing up, or you can pull it off your bookshelf in a review, and you know exactly what you need to practice and how you need to train. So once you review it one time, I think it's going to be a resource that you come back to time and time again, especially if you don't have time to get in for a lesson or things, especially in the middle of the shooting season.
Yeah, it covers everything. Gun fit. I mean, it's just amazing that you can remember all that. I mean, you must have written it down somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's a composition of my life of shooting. So it took a lot of time, and I have a gentleman that worked with me named Kerry Luff, who worked at the Chicago Tribune as the chief editor for 30 years. So him helping me say my message and say it clearly and make the book interesting to read. I definitely couldn't have done it without him in regards to, the flow of the book and making it the best product that we could possibly make. And we try to be as comprehensive as possible. To be honest with you, we spent God knows how many hours going through it, editing, redoing, moving, shifting this here. And by the end of it, it's a process that you basically at some point you just have to say, okay, we're done, because you can always think of one more thing that you could add, or one more hypothetical and one more scenario. Tried to have it as a resource to learn how to shoot, but be fun to read and give you some examples from my life of shooting, things that really happened and things that I've seen happen, and make that part more, not just you could think of it as an encyclopedia of shooting, but we didn't want it to be like reading an encyclopedia. We want it to be exciting and fun, etc. So We're very proud of it, and it'll be something that'll be here and around, long after I'm gone.
Yep, that's right. All right, since we're still talking about the shoot, I got a question John and I were talking about earlier, and it's averages on an easy course and a hard course. So I could go shoot the easy course or the hard course, and my scores are pretty much the same. But you would think that they would be different. Maybe the easy course would be better than the hard course. And most people, or a lot of people, are like that. They might shoot a 60 on the hard course and then an 85 on the easy course. So my scores being the same on both, what does that say?
There's a couple of possibilities for you, Justin, and there's some other people that are probably in the same scenario as you, where if you've basically shooting the same score regardless the difficulty. And here, one course is drastically harder than the other course, and the same thing is also true like in the preliminaries, etc. Partly the target setter and partly the layout of the course. One has more area, one has less area, one has a lot of towers, one has less features to throw, more challenging targets. I would say that if your scores you're not having a disproportionately higher score on the easier course, then some things that you're lacking are on the easier side. Some things you're lacking is, maybe routine, mentally keeping yourself in it to kill 6 out of 6 on the birds that you can kill 6 out of 6 on. Within that, before you get into the box and you have a routine, like truly rehearsing what you're doing to be able to get your mind into the place that you're able to repeat the process without thinking about the process, and therefore being able to carry out your routine. So that's a possibility. There's always a possibility that you have a broad library of experience on a lot of targets, so you shoot the harder targets just as well as you shoot the easier targets, because you spend the same amount of time working on the harder targets as you have the easier targets.
Right.
So you're studying and training of the game, while most people would have done more shooting on closer targets and less on harder targets. There's a possibility for you and the folks that are scoring like you that you've spent potentially too much time on the harder birds and not enough time on the easier, or just the same on both. And, that's not necessarily the case for most folks. They've shot a lot of closer and inside 35-yard birds than they had outside 35 yards. So it's hard to say. I would say something mentally, something experience-based on the different targets, and potentially something on the closer birds. There could be some form of eye dominance, etc., that makes this less drastic and less noticeable on the long targets. That's something that definitely shows up for some folks, that when they say I shoot harder birds better than I do easy birds. For me, that's kind of a red flag for, something might be going on with your eyes that we need to understand better to help you score better on those shorter birds. If we look at the folks that shot much better on the closer birds or the easier course than they did on the harder course, then I would say for those folks, for the most part, just experience. Their library of shots is lacking on that hard course. The hard course today on the blue in the main event is tough. Okay, there's a lot of shots you got to shoot quick. There's a lot of birds that are really fast. I did not shoot well. I missed the first pair out to start off the day. And if anyone listening is like me, sometimes when you start missing, it's hard to get it together, and it's kind of contagious, right?
I miss a lot. I got a lot of contagion over here.
So I struggled big time today. What's interesting is I feel like my actual shooting is good, but on a course that's that difficult, I'm making. I made mistakes reading a couple birds. I made mistakes where I'm putting a lot of effort into executing the first bird on a tough pair, and I didn't pay enough attention to reading the second bird and gave that up. Do that on the first pair. Now you get the pressure on. You miss one on the next pair. I had a lot of that happening where just made a lot of errors from reading to mental, but mental partially because of the situation I'm in from missing. The birds are tough. You get real aggressive to kill a bird quick. Next thing you know, you dutch a pair. And then now your chances for mental mistakes are higher. So I would say a lot of shooters who shot the blue course at the Jack Sling Cup, are going to have similar experiences to me. And I've been doing this a long time, and I struggled out there. And I'm never, I have to work hard at the game to shoot well, and I put in 100% effort, and I shot an 84 out of 100 today. So that tells you the difficulty level of the course. I shot 197 at the U.S. Open last year. So,
that's
crazy. That's, just giving you a comparison of, how hard the game can be at times. It's hard for the difficulty level of the birds, and it's just hard because the game is challenging.
For a shoot like this, when there's a clear disparity between two courses, and that, right? Everyone's talking about it. You go to the banquet here, you're talking with your friends after the shoot, and one person shot the so-called easier course, one shot the so-called harder course, but you truly know they're different, and this shoot's always had that disparity. How do you mentally prepare, whether you start on the hard course or you start on the closer target course? Do you do anything different, or if it's just you're going to shoot your game and run your program?
Yeah, you pretty much just have to, give 100% effort and go through your whole process of having a plan at the station, reading the birds, having a plan, having a routine. I don't think you can really do much different. One is going to be harder than the other. If you're missing birds on a harder course, other people are probably missing also. I think that's important to know. I shot an 84 and I never gave up. I tried to hit every one. I just didn't hit them.
Yeah, does it bother you knowing that you're out there on a course and you're one of the best, and you start missing like this, and you're thinking, all these people are seeing me shoot an 84? Does that stuff bother you?
Not really. I guess indirectly, without realizing it, there's, when you're at the highest level, and I've shot at the highest level for a long time, you have pressure related to that. You have, whether you realize it or not, right? So it's just kind of inherent. I don't necessarily think of it at the time, when I'm struggling, but that pressure's there all the time, right? But that's part of what makes you, the adrenaline to want to do well is that pressure, et cetera. So yeah, it definitely is there. I don't necessarily think of it in the short run, like the day of, partly because look, I want to do well for myself, more than doing well for anyone else that's going to watch me, right? So that's the ultimate pressure. And the game is tough, and I've taught shooting, since I was 13 years old, and I think that being able to have a day like I had today that is not very good and figure out what you're going to do. I have a pretty clear idea of exactly why I missed pretty much every bird, so that's important because I need to be able to make some kind of a correction moving forward, whether that's, really it's only February, right? So while this is a great shoot, at the end of the year, it's not going to be the one that I was looking to win. So I need to improve upon myself from here for the shoots that are more important to me, the World Championships, the U.S. Open, the National Championship, etc.
So what do you do as far as you got the easier course coming tomorrow?
Yeah.
You just go out there and just shoot your best and try to get the best score you can?
I'm out of it, so there's no chance I can win, but I'm going to go out there and hit every one that I can and put the pressure on myself to do well. There's not going to be as much pressure because you don't have any chance of winning. So,
going back to the scores being like I was talking about, being the same or on average the same with a hard course and easy course. Now that you say that, when I go out on the easier course, I notice myself not paying as much attention to the targets.
Yeah.
As I do when they're hard. I know this is hard. I know I'm going to have to watch this. When I go out on I can hit this, and then I miss it. And I think that's probably right.
You have to basically be more disciplined, you have to be more disciplined on an easier course because you can't give something away and make it up. You can on a harder course. You go in and run a hard stand. You can trade off from a couple of the ones you missed, but on easy course, when you give them away, there's no getting them back.
That's right. How did you get away, John? Now, John works with the NRA. How did you get away to come down here and shoot?
Yeah, so I coincidentally timed this shoot with a fundraising trip that we do every time this time of year. Try to get down to Florida. We have a lot of good supporters and partners down here. Just so happens it's an election year, the big midterm election. So fundraising is a big part of my job, and it's more important than ever for us. So I came down to Florida, to Miami on Monday. I put 1,100 miles on my rental car from Monday to Thursday, and ended up here at Quail Creek. So timed it pretty well to be able to get down here and enjoy the shoot.
Yeah, I see the NRA has a tent here.
Yes, we do.
I haven't seen a tent at an NRA tent yet at a sporting clay event.
Yep. So Kelby Senior, some of you know, just been shooting for a long time. He worked for me up at our headquarters, and we promoted him to be something we call grassroots coordinator. So he's based out of Jacksonville now. So he got lucky and moved back to Florida and the freedom they enjoy down here compared to D.C. And he'll be running our grassroots program in South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and going into Alabama. So a big part of his job going into this cycle will be managing a campaign staff. So we're hiring 3 to 4 campaign staffers just in Georgia. So he'll be managing them, and you'll see a lot more of them. So he's active on the circuit. So when he's here shooting, might as well sign people up and get volunteers and let folks know what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Now, what is new with our gun laws? What's going on that we need to know about?
We've been pretty successful at the federal level, and we had talked before about the importance of defeating the nomination of David Chipman to be the ATF director, which would have caused a lot of problems for the gun and ammo companies and gun owners in general and gun clubs. But now the focus has really moved towards looking for an opinion from the Supreme Court. We had a successful case heard before the court in November that deals with concealed carry out of New York, which will, if you're one of the listeners who's from New Jersey, New York, Maryland, a state like that, hopefully that'll impact your ability to be able to get a permit in the future. We should hear an opinion on that in May or June. The more quote-unquote controversial topics typically come at the end of the term before the Supreme Court recesses for the summer. But once that's done, all eyes are really on the midterm election and trying to get back what I call pro freedom majority in the House and Senate. That's our total focus once we get out of legislative session. We'll be deploying dozens of campaign staff into the field. But right now we're really watching there's a lot of competitive primaries out there. I want to see what candidates get out of there. And get the best candidate who has the best chance to win, and we're going to be very active. So many of you who are members, and those of you who aren't, who pay attention to what we work on, will be contacted by us. Whether someone actually knocks at your door, or you see a TV ad, or hear a radio ad, or digital ad, or get mail. So it's going to be a very busy year for us. Anthony just talked on paper a little bit ago, and we kind of get into supply chain issues, and many of you listening have businesses of your own. And just for an example, I ordered nearly $4 million worth of raw paper 6 months ago, so we would have enough paper in time for the election season because of supply chain concerns. So that's how your mind has to go in the current economy we're in.
You brought up we were talking about this a little bit ago. Talk about the inflation.
Yeah, I mean, everybody listens sees it, right? You see diesel for your truck or gas for your car, it's going up. Your groceries have skyrocketed. Food prices have skyrocketed, and labor prices have skyrocketed. And one of the questions I have for Anthony is, specific to what we do here at Shooting, you see golf cart prices are going up. Inevitably, clays will go up, and tournaments are going to get more expensive for both the shooter and the club. But as a club manager and owner and as a shooter, what do you see, and how do you see, the Biden economic crisis affecting folks, specifically with inflation?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine we're going to have some kind of slowdown, in the economy at large at some point, specifically related to shooting and clubs. Everything costs more. I was just working on some registration forms for my tournaments this fall. Food costs me more. I had to pay my referees more. Everything related to hosting clays costs more, fuel costs more. Everything related to hosting a tournament is more expensive than it used to be, just like anything else in the rest of the economy at large. So unfortunately, some of those costs have to get passed on, just like when you go to the grocery store, your bill is more than it was last year at this time when you went to the grocery store. So ultimately, that's going to mean there's going to be some type of a slowdown at some point. I'd hate to see it, but that's just the typical business cycle. It's that's how it works. Golf carts being kind of a clear example. That's tough for the ranges and tough for the shooters. During COVID, a lot of rental fleets sold off their fleets. And there's shortage of golf carts. There's not as many golf carts in rental fleets as there used to be for a multitude of reasons. From more people have bought golf carts, and golf carts bring higher prices, so the people that own rental fleets sold them off. Camping is at an all-time high where people are going camping. A lot of people camping buy golf carts. Campgrounds rent golf carts for a lot of money, and the cart never leaves the campground for 6 months at a time. So these people that have big rental fleets of golf carts can ship them off to a campground and make a lot more money than they can take them to a tournament for a week. So ultimately, the shooters have to pay higher prices. The ranges, if they're renting them indirectly, have to pay higher prices. So what does this look like, and what does it mean? I'd say that our year, this past year, was good. We stayed, we threw, I think, a record number of targets at our range this year through 2021. But we really didn't see the higher places till the last quarter of the year is when you really started seeing them, the last half to the last quarter. Where do we look like in the next year? I don't know. Hopefully shooting keeps going and stays strong, etc. That's right there. The person who's kind of on the fence with their budgeting, etc., is going to put them in a tough position, unfortunately. And it's, as a range owner, I would say that we're watching our prices and trying to do the best that we can, but hosting a tournament is a lot of work, and there's a lot that goes into it, and unfortunately you can't expect someone to do a lot of hard work and not make a profit.
Yeah, you've got entry fees are $300 for a main event entry, but if that's all somebody shoots and they're complaining about it, they're not thinking about what all goes into that $300. You got fancy dinners, water everywhere, snacks sitting around. All that stuff has to come out of something.
Right.
And if it's not there, then the club's not going to do it.
There's some sponsorships, and the clubs get some sponsorship, but not enough. All of our sponsorship comes from within the industry, and the industry is really not that big. No. So the sponsorships are not that much. While we appreciate all the ranges appreciate everything that they get, I would say that most of the ranges that are hosting tournaments, they work really hard for a fair profit at best.
Are you interested in a discount on guns, ammunition, and nearly every other accessory you can think of? Well, go to clayshootersupply.com and use the code ShotgunSports at checkout to save 5% on everything. How would you like to save $100 on a set of Sound Gear Phantoms, the only custom Bluetooth hearing protection on the market? Here's how. Go to ultimateshootingaccessories.com. Add them to the cart and use the code SGBarker at checkout.
We're, speaking of sponsorships, something that I deal with a lot is polling. Okay. And Gallup is a well-known polling firm, and they've been running polls every year on this issue, and gun rights and Second Amendment and just guns in general is always a topic. And what we're seeing right now is the support for gun control is at the lowest it's been in roughly 60 years, approximately, on what they're running. It's continuing to decrease. So in essence, the support for gun rights is going up, but not just being political on that issue and looking at the shooting sports in general. Whenever that number goes down, that's good for the shooting sports, because big companies, whether it's Ford or GM or Toyota or Anheuser-Busch or Miller, they look at things like that when they get into who are they going to sponsor. They don't have an infinite amount of marketing dollars, and a lot of times it just takes having the right connection or having the right friend to reach out to those companies and getting them involved and showing that it is a worthwhile thing for them. But I think as those numbers continue to decline and gun ownership is going to be more common in American households than it's ever been in our history, I think it is a ripe time to try to bring in new sponsors into the sport. But everyone always asks, you'll see guys online who, won the Nationals with their 870 at some point, as they claim, why don't we have more sponsors? Well, it's not that easy. You got to have the right contact. You got to have the company that has the money, and they want to have the drive to do it. But it's a good time, and we should never back off those efforts, because we've seen what corporate sponsorship money can do to a shoot like this, where we are this weekend, and it can have a big impact.
Why do you think that number is up as far as guns are concerned?
Well, I think it goes back to the kind of unrest we saw develop in the summer of 2020. People live in HOA communities where, regardless if they're Democrat or Republican or an independent, they thought for the first time in their life that when they picked up the phone and they dialed 911, someone may not answer. Whether it's because the cops were busy with a protest that turned violent, or whether the cops were out because they had COVID, or whether their police force is reduced because of defund the police movement, or just pure frustration of how hard it is to do that job day in and day out, and they decide to retire. So individuals for the first time really realized and were given a dose of reality that they should take the defense of themselves and their family into their own hands, because I've heard time and time again, when minutes count, when seconds count, police are minutes away. So if someone's breaking into your home, you need to defend your family yourself. Worry about calling 911 later. And so you had people in gated communities and HOAs and things buying their first handgun or whatever self-defense firearm they could get. Inevitably, when you sell another 10 or 15 million guns to new gun owners, it's going to have an impact at some point. And part of my job, and I've identified a large number of those through a very, very expensive data project I've worked on. And our job's to message them and educate them about their newly exercised rights. And when they go to vote and they think they like them for policy X, Y, or Z, but they want to take away their ability to defend their family, they might think twice about that. But it's also kind of I'm going to segue into a question I have for Anthony too, is with having a range, is it had a huge impact on ammunition, as we know. Right. It's been one of the major contributing factors to the ammo shortage. And I've seen I'm starting to see common calibers back on the shelves. You have 9mm and 5.56. If you go to your Cabela's or Bass Pro, you'll see rows of that. Part of that's because the price is very high. But I always thought there was a 6-month gap between what happened to centerfire and what happened to the shot shells. Are you seeing more availability with shot shells now? I know Winchester has stepped up and kind of really helped keep afloat a lot of our big shoots, the regionals, nationals, this shoot. But are you seeing more availability in shot shells?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big shooting tournaments are not really an indicator of the country as a whole, with just all shot shells from hunting loads to target loads. I would say it's getting a little bit better. I see more people show up to the range that have their own ammo versus 3 months ago. No one showed up and had their own ammo. And if they had their own ammo, they left it at home and they still bought ammo at the range. So I'd say it's getting a little bit better. I don't think it's a lot better, because I think there's going to be a hoarding effect that goes on for a long, long time. Meaning that when people do not like to feel like they're prohibited from having something. So when shells become available in larger quantities, regardless of the price, there's still going to be some people that say, I want to have 15 cases of ammo at the house at all times now. So I'm going to buy that when I can, or every time I can walk in there. If they have a 2-case limit or 3-case limit, I'm going to buy 2 or 3 till I got enough at the house that makes me feel comfortable. So I think we're in it for a long time. I don't think we're out of it at the end of this year. I know, like, through this winter, there was, like, say 410 hunting ammo in certain parts of the country did not exist. So there's folks who went hunting in the wintertime with a 410 their whole lifetime, and they went to all the local shops around them and they couldn't get it. So the price of 410 hunting ammo on the internet this winter was $300 a case for something that should have been, $140. So, prices are going to help, because prices are up, not necessarily just because of commodities, but because of scarcity. So you have commodity prices plus scarcity. It's getting a little better, but I think we're in it for a little bit.
Yeah. You know why he asked that question, right? No. Because he's worried about his job at Ammo Barn.
Yeah, I got a season membership with my chiropractor. But I did miss out on a really busy day. Luckily, NRA had me occupied somewhere else, which I was extremely grateful for. But I know Anthony came upon a few cases of shells and put the guys to work at the farm.
Yeah, we opened up our ammo barn. We had a lot of tournaments this fall, and we made sure we had a great selection through the fall, and then we don't have a big tournament till spring. So we had a bunch of premium ammo that we sold and just opened it for a day and said, hey, come get it. You can buy 20 cases. And there was 150 people standing in line at one point in time.
Really?
On a Sunday,
we sold like 1,300 cases, at fair prices,
Wow.
So people could get it and they could buy 20 cases of double A's or
and hunting ammo,
some BMPs and some Fiocchis and hunting ammo. So, and that's a little bit of what's going on too. So there's ranges and distributors and stuff that are holding ammo because they don't know what their inflow looks like, right? So you can't clear yourself out assuming that you're going to get it when it's scheduled for the end of the month, because if it doesn't come in at the end of the month and you're arranged, now you're out of business. So that was mostly all premium ammo. We said, hey, come get it, because we didn't necessarily need it for the next 4 or 5 months for just daily shooting. So, and that people are very grateful to get it, because in our area, if they're shooting the tournaments, local area, a couple hours from there, they can't necessarily find it. So now a lot of those folks are, are good for their season or half their season.
Right. So you brought up the gun ownership going up, and you say it's a good opportunity for sponsorship in this sport. How would you go about getting that?
Well, again, I think it's a good opportunity for non-industry support. The big brands. I mean, look, they have supply chain issues, but they're doing well. Like, these car companies are posting record profits. In our industry, we just had the NRA Great American Outdoor Show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania a week ago. And while you had SHOT Show and some others were we're down a little bit on attendance from prior years. We nearly beat our pre-COVID peak. So we had 165,000 people go through that show in 9 days. And we have Yamaha there, we have Ram there, we have Ford there. They're all on display. So I think the fact that they're willing to come to that, and they're at an outdoor show, they recognize that this is their clientele. I think it's important to reach out to them, and sometimes it's just to have the initiative from the ranges, but I think it's also important on the NSCA side to reach out and try to lock in a corporate sponsorship across the board who supports at least our regionals and then our biggest signature events and move their way down. But a lot of times the best contact may be if you have a dealer in your area who's a member at the club and shoots. Especially if they're a very large dealer, they're going to have corporate contacts. The automobile dealer world is generally a pro-gun world, so they might be a good help. But Polaris and Yamaha, it still bothers me to this day that you can go to a club, and I can't imagine anywhere in the country where there's a bigger concentration of side-by-sides and individuals who will buy every single possible accessory that you can strap on that side-by-side in a couple 100-acre area. Just look at the Nationals. All it takes is taking a drone video of the Nationals and mailing that thing to Polaris or Yamaha or Can-Am and saying, I think it's a pretty target-rich environment for your clients.
Right, but then you got the people on the other side that are anti-gun, and they may not buy that product because they're involved with guns.
I think traditionally speaking, shotgun shooting and clay shooting and things like that, I think it's a pretty safe bet for a sponsor. Well, I think there should be corporate sponsors of all shooting. I think if you get into the 3-gun world, and they've had corporate sponsors in 3-gun where they're shooting, modern sporting rifles, shooting shotgun, pistol. It's a more physical competition, but they can get corporate sponsors. But I think it takes knowing someone there and piquing their interest. I know Polaris used to sponsor the shoots at Caribou. Because someone at the club knew where they made them in Minnesota and reached out. So I think some creative marketing on our part and taking kind of some of the promo videos we do for the clubs and the big shoots and reaching out to some of these big companies and just showing this is where your customers are. And it's quite frankly our advertising rates compared to what these guys pay for these other sports. I mean, look at bowling or something. They're paying a lot more for something that no one's even watching.
I watch bowling. You don't like bowling?
You probably sat on your couch and watched curling last week too, but
was that on?
Yes.
I missed that.
If anyone listens, just take a look at the American curling team. That's peak performance at its finest.
Yes. Takes a lot of talent.
I think going back to something we touched on to start the episode with having this as a new shoot, being the Jack Links Cup, we have a lot of big shoots. I think some of the attendees that are here and some of the people that will hear what went on at the shoot and want to come next year, it is a little bit of a different shoot. The hospitality is really good. The door gifts were good. The banquet prizes are good, but I want people to look at it as this is a great shoot and we're really grateful, but it's a great way to start the year. And the Nationals is a great way to end the year. So you can come down and shoot the Florida circuit and the Florida circuit with a shoot like this, which is kind of a big bang shoot, and then get into your grind and go enjoy your local gun club and enjoy the regionals and the big signature shoots, and then you close your year out with the Nationals. I think we're really on pace to have a great year coming out of COVID. Everybody persevering through everything that's going on and setting us up for a really good 22.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's I don't know, Anthony. You can answer this. Has something been done like this before?
The
payout, the Jack Links. Other than Dubai, I mean,
no,
I'm talking about the United States.
Not consistently. They had when they had that Delta shoot, they put up a bunch of money, et cetera, but it lasted for a year or two. So I'm hopeful for this to be here for a long time. So not consistently, right? So the payout in this shoot is drastically higher than any payout in any other shoot, and us as the shooters can, thank the people hosting it, because it's not coming out of your entry fee.
No.
It's coming out of their pocket for you to come here and enjoy it and have the whole experience of the venue and the chance to win some great prizes. So hats off to them, and I think the shoot could get bigger and bigger. And if I was hosting, I'd make it a 3-day main event, and let's get 1,000 people rolling in here in the main event.
Yeah, I think there's definitely potential to really expand the total number of shooters. They got the ground, as you can see, from going all the way back to the FITAS, but it really, if you look at it, it can become an anchor for this awesome Florida shooting program, which is, everyone that I aspire to be, which is retired, comes down here and spends the month and gets out of the cold, and they can shoot week after week, and it can be the anchor in the final big blast of the Florida shoots, which really get the year going. So hats off to Jack Links and the new ownership here, because I think it's a great way to keep Florida growing in the sporting clays community and help all of us.
Before we get off, don't you have a big shoot coming up, Anthony?
We have our big seafood blast is at the end of April. It's a good shoot. It's as a standalone shoot. I think it's probably one of the biggest in the country. It's definitely been going on one of the longest as a standalone shoot, meaning it's not a regional, it's not a state championship. It gets about 600 and some people. It's interesting in that it's more of a local tournament. So 650 people come from our local area, and if there's 650 people there, probably only 50 of them fly in. So it's
really?
We've never really tried to promote it as to compete on a national level, because we didn't really have to, but that tells you that if 650 people drive there, it's pretty interesting. We do a great seafood feast. And,
it's the best meal in sporting clays still.
It's
really?
Yeah, you get a tray of seafood.
It's not the hardest targets, it's like an average set of targets for an NSCA shoot, and you could bring your buddy who wants to come out and shoot with you, who only shoots recreationally. He can come that weekend, so the targets will be tough for him, obviously, but they're not going to be like going out here on the blue course and where he's not going to hit anything.
Right.
So,
and touching on that, with you said bring a buddy, I know we're trying to wrap this up for everybody listening, but I think if you look at the class distribution of the past results of the Seafood Blast, and you look at E and D and C, it's a very even distribution, because you do a lot of work with both over-the-counter and working on your mail list to truly encourage new shooters to sign up. I mean, I've personally talked to a lot of shooters. Could be one of their first shoots, and they're like, this is great. And talk about a shoot to get them hooked on our sport and keep them coming back.
Yeah, we use, and I think this is important for shooters that are listening and range owners, etc. We use that tournament to basically encourage all the people who visit our club throughout the year you're invited to I send an email that says you're invited to the Big Seafood Blast. So if you're just a regular member that comes and shoot clays, that's what your email says. And then the next thing it says, you can join the NSCA for free if you show up. And we'll walk you through basically making sure that you know what to do, because it can be overwhelming if you've never shot in a tournament.
Right.
And if that guy comes and he does the main event and he stays and has the lunch and he sees all the bells and whistles of what's going on, and he goes and shoots a little practice 5 stand, the practice course is open, and he sees some gun vendors and all this people out there, he's going to come back and shoot the rest of the tournaments that we have in the fall. And we have record, numbers of participation through, multiple shoots throughout the season. It's because we encourage the guy to start, in E-class, so then I've got him coming, all the way through the classes, and he's going to come out for year after year and do different tournaments. Even if he doesn't do a lot of tournaments, if he does a handful a year because he felt comfortable that first time, they kind of, so that tournament, if you look at the numbers, if there's 600 people, there would be 65, 70 people in each class of D and E. That's not the case in most regional championships, etc.
Yeah, it makes it approachable for the guys who are nervous about they don't come on a tournament day. One of the other things too is it's important because you get a lot of that marketing to the recreational shooters by keeping a practice course open during the shoot. So let's say if they didn't shoot the tournament because they, for whatever reason, but they came out and they shot the practice course, all the time you get guys, what's going on here? Are we allowed to do this? Yeah, absolutely. Let me go through it with you and make it as approachable and make them feel invited. We truly want them to shoot. I don't care if you hit 1 clay or you hit 90. It doesn't matter. Just come out and have a good time. We have something for you at whatever shoot it is across the country. It's kind of an importance of, if you're in a fairly metropolitan area and you can get regular recreational shooters on the weekend, trying to take care of them if you have the ability during one of these shoots, so they see what's going on and how all the camaraderie and all the events. That's what really pulls them in too.
How do you have time for all this?
My life.
Yeah, I mean, you got a book, you got a video, you got a gun club, you coach,
3 kids,
a
charter
wife,
boat,
new house, fish all the time. I mean, how do you?
I'm just pretty focused. I mean,
You not get any sleep?
No, I sleep 6 hours a night every night, sometimes 7. But I don't waste any time. I get up in the morning, I let my dog out, I start doing emails, I get my kids' stuff ready for in the morning, let my wife sleep an extra half hour in the morning and get their lunch boxes ready and packed up and let my dog back in and keep doing emails, and I don't waste any time. Okay. And I run off a schedule. I can tell you, I know the schedule for 2022 in my head. I could probably tell you the day of the week. If you tell me the date in December, I can probably tell you the day of the week in my head, because I look at my schedule every day. I've got my schedule done for the entire year. I can tell you where I'm going to be, what I'm going to be doing for the next 365 days without looking at the calendar.
When are you going to Disney again?
Well, my wife might go in November with a girls trip, but if she doesn't, then I'll probably be going sometime in the next 18 months.
He loves Disney.
I went in December, and the only reason I went is because my wife has bugged me about going for years, and I just wanted to get it over with. So tore the Band-Aid off, not going back. I don't know how he does it. But,
you love it, though, right?
I like it. My kids love it. They're only little ones. They get excited about it. And, I'm busy, and I spend a lot of time with my kids as much as I can. I bring them to tournaments. We do a lot of stuff together. But, if I go there with them for 5 days, then I'm with them all day for 5 days. And that's not something that I do all day long for 5 days in a row, many times throughout the year. So,
right.
They're excited. They like it. That's where they want to go. So I work really hard. I can afford to go. That's what they want to do. Let's go.
That's right. All right, guys. That's it. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
All right.